At 6 in the morning, my front door shook under the pounding of two men in fake police uniforms. They barked that I had 24 hours to pack up and leave or face arrest. And there, across the street, stood Patricia, the HOA president, who had been tormenting me for months, grinning like she was about to watch me crumble. That grin froze solid when the door swung open because the man standing there wasn't me. It was my son in his real sheriff's uniform. You'd think by 65 I'd be done with this kind of high school drama, but apparently suburban life has a way of dragging you into the most ridiculous battles. My name is David Mitchell. I retired after 30 years as an insurance adjuster, expecting quiet mornings and a little gardening on Maple Street. I'd just come out of a brutal divorce. I was living alone for the first time in decades, and the only thing that kept me grounded was my adult son Marcus visiting on weekends. He'd mow the lawn, fix a few things, and distract me from the emptiness. But then, Patricia King decided to turn my new life into hell. At first it was laughable. A note taped to my door about grass height. A citation over the paint on my shutters. I thought fine, power-tripping HOA presidents exist everywhere. But it got darker fast. She cited me for things no ordinary neighbor could possibly know: exact permit numbers from years-old renovations, the name of my electrical contractor, even the model series of my replacement windows. I stared at those violations and felt my stomach drop. Someone had dug through city records. Someone was feeding her inside information, and she knew exactly how to weaponize it. Every demand was expensive. $800 for a landscape redesign. $1,200 for an engineering report on a deck that had already passed inspection. Daily penalties that stacked like compound interest. Within weeks, I was staring at nearly $5,000 in fines. For a man on a fixed retirement income, that's the difference between peace of mind and panic at the mailbox. I tried to shrug it off, but the pattern was too precise. 30 years in insurance had trained me to spot fraud, and I knew when something wasn't random. So I went back to my old habits, photographing every notice, saving every voicemail, filing everything with dates and times. Document everything I muttered like I was back in the office. Marcus helped me organize it all on weekends, shaking his head. "Dad, this isn't normal HOA stuff. This is evidence." But the social isolation hit harder than the fines. Neighbors who'd waved at me for years suddenly couldn't meet my eyes. When I asked for support, they parroted the same lines: community safety, property values, immediate resolution required. Like robots reading from a script. The only one who saw through it was Judy, the teacher next door. One night, while we were gardening, she whispered, "David, this is harassment. I've seen these patterns before." Her words were a lifeline. Because honestly, I was starting to wonder if I was losing my mind. The harassment escalated. Sprinklers snapped. Fence posts loosened. My irrigation system mysteriously failed. I set up cameras and caught glimpses of someone using my elderly neighbor's daily walk as cover to slip onto my property. And then, one afternoon working outside, I overheard Patricia's voice drift from her driveway. "We need property acquisition completed before the rezoning vote. 6 months is the deadline." Acquisition. Deadlines. Investors. She wasn't talking like an HOA president. She was talking like a business shark. I went inside, pulled up city planning documents, and almost fell out of my chair. My corner lot, currently worth about $320,000, sat in the middle of a zone scheduled for commercial rezoning. Once approved, my property's value would shoot up to over $4 million. $4 million. And Patricia knew. She wasn't enforcing rules, she was running a pressure campaign to scare me into selling before the secret got out. That realization crushed me. Suddenly, every letter, every fake concern about community values made sense. She was trying to steal my retirement, my home, my dignity, and there were days I nearly gave in. I remember sitting at my kitchen table with a pile of notices, head in my hands, thinking, maybe I should just sell, take the hit, disappear. Maybe I really am the problem here. Maybe peace is worth more than pride. But then I remembered the fraud cases I'd worked. I remembered every scammer who thought they could bury people under fake paperwork until they broke. And something inside me snapped. No, I wasn't going to hand over my life to a bully in designer sunglasses. I was going to fight. Judy began collecting the neighbor petitions and showed me the identical grammar mistakes across multiple signatures. Leonard, the out-of-work security guard Patricia had dragged onto the board, read citations with trembling hands, obviously terrified. I saw cracks in her operation. And then Marcus dropped the biggest bombshell of all. "Dad," he said one Saturday, pulling something from his wallet. "A badge. I haven't just been helping you mow lawns. I've been building a criminal case. Every photo, every file, we've been documenting this by the book. My own son was a deputy sheriff, and he had been quietly preparing everything to hold up in court." For the first time in months, I felt hope burn through the fog. Patricia must have sensed resistance because she went nuclear. She organized hearings dressed up like courtrooms, waved around doctored legal documents, and even forged bylaw changes that gave herself powers no HOA should ever have. It was laughable if it hadn't been so dangerous. And when that didn't crush me, she planned her final intimidation play, fake cops at my door. I knew something was coming. Leonard had privately confessed she promised him a cut of the payday if he helped enforce her schemes. His conscience was cracking under the pressure. He admitted she was arranging uniforms, fake warrants, even a rented patrol car. Marcus and I prepared like we were setting a trap. Cameras on every angle chain of custody procedures, Judy ready as a witness. Then came that morning. The pounding shook the walls. Police open up for immediate community enforcement. My heart pounded, but I wasn't afraid. Marcus was already in uniform, standing tall. He flung the door open, his voice sharp and commanding. "County Sheriff's Department, step back and identify yourselves." The two imposters froze. You could see the panic ripple across their faces. They stammered their fake badges, shaking in their hands. Marcus keyed his radio calm as ice. "Dispatch, this is Deputy Mitchell. I have 2 suspects impersonating officers at my location. Request immediate backup." My cameras caught every word, every second. Across the street, Patricia's confident smirk dissolved into sheer horror. She thought she'd orchestrated my collapse. Instead, she was watching her empire implode. The fake cops were cuffed on my front porch. Their warrants exposed as cheap printouts. Their cruiser revealed as a rental with toy lights slapped on the roof. And Patricia sat frozen in her SUV as neighbors streamed out with phones recording the entire scene. Tom Bradford, her slick business partner, peeled out of the neighborhood in his luxury car, leaving tire marks and leaving her behind. Leonard walked straight up to Marcus and confessed everything: the payoffs, the manipulation, the lies. Judy provided her meticulous notes proving the petitions and complaints were forged. Piece by piece, Patricia's house of cards collapsed. By the time real backup arrived, there was no saving her. She was arrested on the spot, charged with impersonation, conspiracy, extortion, fraud, harassment. All because she thought she could bully a retired old man into giving up a $4 million property. I didn't cheer. I didn't celebrate. I just stood on my porch, the same place she tried to terrorize me, and watched as real justice dragged her away. That was enough. And here's the lesson I learned standing there in the early morning light: fake power crumbles the moment real authority shows up.